On today's episode of How It's Automated, beacons. Beacons are little sticks you throw at the ground to mark it for special occasions in any color of your choosing. Could be for a birthday, special getaway area, or a particular mineral hotspot for Fix-It to begin strip mining. Beacons are going away soon and are to be replaced with a superior system, but we must not forget them. So, strap on your helmets and let's see how it's automated. Pioneers start the factory by finding some local iron and copper nodes amongst the sand. These nodes are only normal purity, so they opted to just tap more of them. 3 of each to be exact. Fix-It once again stresses that minor buildings will unalive you without hesitation. So do not stand close to them while in operation. The wavy belts ensure the ore is properly awake for its mission. Further shaking may be required. The 3 iron and 3 copper ore belts are then routed to a train station for the long haul. Trains are great for getting items to and from great distances, but the best part is, they do in fact go chew. Once filled, the train then begins transporting the ore to the factory for processing. These wavy tracks ensure the ore is not only mixed up, but also further awakened. Once the train arrives at the station, the ore is then offloaded and belted away. 6 belts are then routed inside the lower level for distribution to begin the smelting process. Let's start with the iron first. The iron ore is belted to a series of smelters to begin the process of being refined down to pure iron ingot bars of heavenly goodness. The inputting iron ore belts must conform to this configuration, or otherwise the ore may fall back asleep. Inside the smelters, the ore is baked for 69 seconds or until the core is evenly molten, but with the desert heat added to it, it doesn't take long to melt. The iron ingots are then belted in this configuration to maintain alertness to the upper floors for further processing. Go noodle belt go. The ingots are then routed to constructors to be turned into iron plates. And iron rods. Both are needed for the manufacturing process of making beacons. Constructors are quite universal buildings and can be adapted for nearly any single item processing. With a quick stamp, any item can be converted to the desired output with the power of Fix-It technology. Before continuing to copper, Fix-It would like to remind you to swing by one of the many break stations to cool off and enjoy a nice refreshing maple syrup to stay hydrated. Remember, you get one 15-minute break a day. Be sure to also grab a snack bar made from the local sweet power slugs. They are also great on toast. Here is one in the wild we found on our way in. Mr. Editor, please edit this and be sure to cut this audio part out. Thank you. Now we check back in with the copper ore and how it is processed. The copper ore is smelted, yeeted? Yacht? I'm going with yeeted. The copper is then yeeted into little bundles of copper ingots that just shine in the sunlight. Once again, pioneers are suggested to belt this way to make sure there is no sleeping in the factory. The copper ingots are weighed down to the atom to make sure the bars are perfect before being processed into the next 2 items. But the second item requires the first, so an entire floor is dedicated to it. The copper ingots are injected into the constructor buildings to be pressed into a long uninsulated wire spool. It's amazing how little copper can go so far, and even more amazing that a wooden spool just appears. Half of the spools are then belted to the next floor for further processing. It's rare, but every now and then a spool gets stuck between dimensions and has to be removed from the belts via redacted. Keep an eye out for clipping and glowing spools of wire. Harvest. The spools of wire are then routed to another constructor stage where it is further processed into insulated cable. Who would have guessed the beacons needed wire? I asked one of the pioneers how that thick cable makes wires small enough for the beacon, but he only handed me a flask of maple syrup to drink. The $20 bill, I am sure, was just an accident. The cable is then noodle belted up to the floor to reach its destination. Here, the iron plates, cable, wire, and iron rods come together and are arranged in a hexagonal bus to begin manufacturing beacons. 20 manufacture buildings are needed to produce those extra juicy beacons. Look at them go. The beacons exit the manufacture buildings perfectly balanced on the base despite moving on belts. A little known fact is that once an item is put on a belt, it is no longer affected by gravity. The beacons are then routed to the top floor to be organized. Here, the beacons ride the belts around the entire floor in order to let the sun's high-intensity photons charge up the batteries. The slow spinning is also a way to lull the beacons to sleep for that long-term storage for if and when the day arises, they are needed once more. And that is how beacons are automated. Beacons were an early game unlock, but being that early, difficult to manufacture. These pioneers loved making them as they could say they were bringing home the beacon. And to fix it, they were the beacon of hope. Most of this episode was designed and built on my live stream on Twitch, and I cannot thank everyone enough for their contributions and suggestions. This episode wouldn't have been nearly as amazing without you all. If you liked this episode and want more, be sure to hit that thumbs up and turn that sub beacon on to stay up to date with more how it's automated. And remember, stay efficient, pioneers.